Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Penetration Testing Challenges for Cloud Based Applications, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. And I am Ritika Chakraborty. I will be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules for our attendees. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to the organizers or the speaker, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. And very important announcement for certificate of attendance. Participants need to attend the complete webinar to qualify for the certificate. Also, should fill in the survey form, which will be sent to the attendees thank you email, and answer correctly the 3 multiple choice questions based on the webinar. The certificate of attendance shall be sent to the attendees within next 5 to 7 working days. Now, about our speaker. Sergey Shuvarov is a security and cloud expert, instructor with 15 plus years of experience in Microsoft technologies. His day-to-day job is to help companies securely embrace cloud technologies. He has certifications and recognitions such as EC Council's CEH, CPENT, LPT, CCSC, CEI, CREST, CPSA, CRT, Microsoft MVP Security, OSCP, OSEP, ECPPT, ECPTX, and many more. Sergey often speaks at local and international conferences like Global Azure, DEF CON, Black Hat Europe, Wild West Hacking Fest, Security B-Sides, Workplace Ninja, Midwest Management Summit, Hack in the Box, and etc. So now, without any further delay, I would now hand over the session to you, Sergey.
Good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Just in case we had some interesting stuff about my microphone. I guess you can, because
Yes,
I can
we
see
can
that.
hear
Yeah,
you.
good. I show you a slide about myself just to help you with all of those certifications and conferences. Let me just take one step back, just to tell about the topic we're going to cover, and then we'll show you a slide with me again. We're going to talk here about pen testing challenges for cloud-based applications. So what's the idea of this webinar? So I guess I know about your experience and background, but you are at least interested in pen testing. And we collect a lot of experience in pen testing of like something on premises, like web applications, maybe not on premises, but something more traditional. Web applications, Active Directory, Windows Server, Linux Server, and so on. But when it comes to the cloud, and now we have something else, something different. So for a long time, maybe not for a long time, but for some time period, pen testers tried to use the same techniques, but it used to work in the beginning because companies mostly moved to the cloud to what is called IaaS, infrastructure as a service. But then when it comes to PaaS and SaaS, it became very tricky because now we have a bit different infrastructure, and maybe not different infrastructure, but we don't have the same level of access, even customer. So we need to find out what is the same and what is different when we go to pen test the cloud. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about cloud pen testing and some specifics that you may find about the cloud. And we will focus on all providers. I mean, we'll talk about all major providers, but only one provider gives me a lot of resources for demos. So mostly I will show you demos based on Azure or Azure if you wish. But we're going to cover like methodology for all providers. So yeah, I don't think I need to repeat again about myself many times. Maybe the most, the one thing that wasn't really covered, that I was a speaker at Hacker Halted, which is the EC Council conference as well last year, and that my session was also about the cloud security and offensive cloud security. But yeah, all the rest is pretty okay, and that's me. That's me. Oh, one more thing. I really love to show live demos. Slides, they are pretty okay, but I think demos, they are a bit more informative. So if I can show demos, I show demos. And my plan for this session is to show you a few slides in the beginning, just talk about methodology and major changes and what is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. That will take some time, but not too much. Then I'm going to jump to demo and show you examples of about specific of cloud resources, like what is the same about cloud resource compared to the on-premises, and what is different. All right, so let's start it. So here I'm showing you the slide from AWS. I told you that will be about it will be based on major cloud providers. This slide from AWS. Next slide will be from Microsoft, from Azure. So first, what you need to understand that what make pen testing of cloud different is the fact that we have shared responsibility between customer and provider. So you may see on this slide like AWS vision on that. And if you look at the AWS vision, we can see that here is the responsibility area of Amazon. So they are responsible of like compute, storage, database, networking, hardware, data centers, and so on. Also the software. But if we go higher, here we can find customer responsibility. And for like customer data, of course, if you place any files, even I know, simple example, if you place Excel file to cloud, even to SaaS platform, even to Dropbox or whatever, and you share this file with someone, that's your responsibility. Customer data, that's the responsibility of customer. Customer data, responsibility of customer. Platform, application, identity management, operating system. So all of this is customer responsibility area. But I would say what I don't like in this Amazon vision, they don't have like a separation by different cloud models. That's why I will switch to the next slide, and that's shared responsibility model of Microsoft. So here Microsoft shows you what if you have on-premises, and then if you move to the cloud, there are 3 models: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And what kind of responsibility you have as the customer, and what kind of responsibility a provider has. So when we are on premises, we are responsible for everything, and that's the most common for pen testers. So you're used to the fact if you compromise something, all of this is the responsibility of the customer. And so if you have an agreement with your customer, like like scope of engagement, and now you can do whatever you like in this scope. But when we move to the cloud, now we start to have provider as well, and provider involved into security. And now we can see that some of those squares, like light blue squares and blue squares. So blue square, that's the customer responsibility, and the light blue square, Microsoft or provider responsibility. And now we can see it's for some portion of the data, for some portion of infrastructure, provider is responsible. So keep in mind, for physical infrastructure, provider will always be responsible in any cloud model. And for the top 3, like information, devices, and accounts, it will be always responsibility of the customer. But in between, it depends. It depends on the model that your customer use. And of course, quite often they mix and match. So for this application, they have IaaS model. For another application, they have PaaS model. Even for the single application, they may have different tiers and different microservices that deployed on the different instances. It may be virtual machines, or it may be like managed service. So it's not always. It may not always be super clear about responsibility of customer and the Microsoft. I would say in general rule, it's more like applied to administrators. If you can control it, you are responsible. If you can control, so if you can manage it, like legally manage, then that is your responsibility. If you can, for instance, configure a firewall, then it will be your responsibility to configure this firewall properly. Because if you open port for everyone, port like SSH port 22 for everyone, that was your choice. So general rules, if you can configure it yourself, like as an administrator, you're responsible. But let's get back to pen testing perspective. So now we need to now let's take a look at the current trends. We see that many companies, they are migrating to the cloud. And so first they migrate from on-premises to IaaS. So just in case, let me translate IaaS if you're not aware. Most of the time when we say about IaaS, we mean virtual machines. So something like we just change the hosting, but we don't need to re-architect the application. So we just change where the application is hosted physically, but all the rest we keep pretty much the same. So we had virtual machines on premises, all right? Now we have virtual machines in the cloud. Yeah, we use hardware of provider, but it's still virtual machines. But after this migration, company pretty quickly realized, quickly or not, depends on the application size and company, cloud adoption journey. They realized that IaaS is still requires a lot of efforts. So customers still need to install software updates, apply many protections, and so on. And so the next step is to move to SaaS and PaaS. So eventually, you may find that the responsibility of Microsoft has become larger, and the responsibility of customers become smaller, which may be a challenge. Another thing that you may also find in the real world. Most companies, they still use hybrid infrastructure. So they don't get rid of on-premises. Yes, some application can be migrated to the cloud, but they still have on-premises. The part of their infrastructure is still on-premises for many reasons. Maybe for compliance reasons, they want to keep some data on-premises. Maybe they don't trust 100% the cloud. They don't want to just have single point of failure, and just they want to keep a copy on premises, and in some circumstances they may fire it up. So they still have hybrid most of the time because of the regulations, because they need to keep some. They don't want some data to leave the company boundary, and so they don't want to keep some data in the public cloud. At the same time, most companies also use more than one cloud, so they have multi-cloud strategy. Even if company highly rely on AWS or Azure, they probably have something running in a different cloud. So multi-cloud strategy, and so and cloud providers also realize that, and they even release some kind of hybrid management tools and hybrid management services to manage multiple clouds from the single place. And finally, about identities. Quite often, identity is also hybrid. So if you have a user on premises, this user will be synchronized to the cloud and will become available in the cloud, will be represented in the cloud as well. Why I'm saying all of this? Because those facts, they give us new challenges and at the same time new opportunities. Let me quickly tell you what kind of challenges we have when our customers move to the cloud. First of all, we may not be sure 100% about legal stuff, because when we try to break our customer, we have an agreement with customer. We have a scope of engagement. And okay, so customer say that customer allows us to try to compromise and pen test. But what about cloud provider? For the part of the infrastructure, cloud provider responsible. Can we do it? Or Microsoft or Amazon or Google will take us to the court because we're trying to break their cloud. Is that legal? So we need to clarify that. So then, even if we get if we have access to some kind of services, we still don't have full access. So we cannot have access to the hardware, so physical attacks will not work anymore. If you if you have physical pen test, you will not for some of the cloud models, you will not be able to have access to operating system. So we don't have full access, and that may confuse a bit, because we used to have more access when we compromise some targets. Also, our tools that we work with in cloud models like SaaS and PaaS may not work. And finally, every cloud, like if company use multi-cloud environment, each cloud has unique services. And even if they do similar things, it doesn't mean that you will be able to compromise them in the same manner. Yeah, of course, let's say virtual machines, they are similar everywhere. They're very similar to on-premises as well. But when it comes to PaaS services, even if we have the service that does the same across multiple clouds, let's say in Azure we have database service, in AWS we have something like Redshift, which is like one of the data services. But it doesn't mean that they have the same capabilities, and it doesn't mean that they can be compromised in the same manner. So each cloud service has unique services, and the way and the approach that you need to use to compromise them will be different. That's the challenges that quite often pen tester may face with. At the same time, when we use cloud, we have new opportunities as a pen tester, I mean, of course. So first of all, because we are in the cloud, there's more chances that service will be publicly exposed. Because if you deploy SQL Server on premises, that will be your on-prem SQL Server, which will be completely backend. It will be your backend. When you deploy the database in the cloud, I don't want to say it will be exposed just by default right away, but you have chances to configure it in that manner pretty easily. So because cloud is something public, and sometimes services may also be exposed, may be easily exposed, and that can give you additional opportunities to find out those services. Another challenge of the cloud is constant changes. So if you work with the cloud and you stop to log in for, I don't know, for 1 month or for a few months, you may get surprised. Sometimes really I work with the service, and then I log in the next day and I cannot find the menu anymore. It was a bit rearranged, and now I need to find it in another different place. So that fact that cloud is not static may also confuse a bit security team, and they may overlook some of the configurations. One more, if we have hybrid cloud, and on most customers they have hybrid cloud, now they have two environments. They have on-prem environment and they have cloud environment. If they have multiple clouds, they have even more environments. So now they need to protect multiple environments. As the result, more things can be overlooked if they have more environments. And as I mentioned before, each environment is pretty unique. So each cloud has unique services, and so they must have like a security experts. They know all of those cloud platforms. So that may be an additional challenge for the customer. And so something may be overlooked just because of the fact that it's the different platforms with different protection. And finally, customers understand that there is no trusted network anymore, and this fact allow us to initiate. So it requires them to change their strategy. How do they protect their assets? So, for example, what I mean by that. In the past, we had trusted network, so everything internal was trusted, everything external not trusted. And so customer just allow users to log in from internally, but from outside, it was pretty tough to get into. But now, when they know that users may work from home, users may work with cloud applications, now there are more chances that something will be opened and will not be restricted only to the specific network. All right, so now a few more things about. Let me just show you about legal stuff. Some suggestions, and then I'm going to switch to demo and show you some how different services can be pen tested. So legal stuff for every cloud provider. In general, every cloud provider allow you to pen test. You don't need to ask. You don't need to like send the email to Amazon and say, "Hey, can I pen test my customer?" You don't have to. But every provider also like has some additional restrictions, and most of them similar. So, for example, you can pen test your customer in Amazon. You don't need to ask for approval. At the same time, if you want to run C2, command and control center in Amazon, you have to ask. At the same time, you cannot pen test AWS infrastructure. So you may touch your customer environment, but don't touch something owned by AWS, so and completely run by AWS. Next one, Microsoft Azure. Here is pretty much the same. Here they also add that you cannot run DDoS attack. They just say about that, and any kind of DDoS attacks are prohibited. And also you may find the link like this where they explicitly say what is allowed, what is not allowed. So penetration testing rules of engagement. So you may just check it yourself. Just type in any search engine pen test rules of engagement, you will find it. And finally, similar for GCP, you don't need to ask for permissions from Google as well. But they also say here that you can just pen test your customer projects, but not other customers' application. All right, and finally, last slide with some suggestions. So in pen test, assessor should focus on customer area of responsibility. Of course, from the legal standpoint, we need to do it. So because otherwise you may violate like a legal requirement. Plus, customer area responsibility is more likely to be vulnerable, because if you try to find out vulnerability in the AWS environment, yeah, of course you may try to participate in bug bounty. I also found some of them in Microsoft environment, but that's the separate thing. You need to follow their rules and what they allow you to pen test. But when you pen test your customers, of course focus on their area of responsibility. All right, so that is some general ideas. Now let me switch to demo and show you something. So I'm going to show maybe not all of them, but some of those some of the services, because to show you all of them, we need to have another webinar. So let me show you the first one. Let's say compute. When it comes to compute, it means virtual machine. So let's take a look. I'm gonna switch to demo, and I have virtual machine, which is vulnerable. And let me start. So because compute is pretty similar, pretty common for pretty similar to on-premises, but there are some specifics. So you may find some similarities. So what should we start from? My virtual machine is hosted in Azure. So let me show you that virtual machine. Just you will know what you may expect. So in this virtual machine, I opened port SSH for everyone. Yeah, of course, that's a pretty bad idea. But port SSH open for everyone. And so, of course, as usual, we can use this similar enumeration like we have, like we do it on premises. So we can open nmap and look for open ports. Then this machine also has not very secure account. So I will try to get into the machine using like simple brute force. But then after I get into, we will see some differences that on-prem environment may not have, probably doesn't have. So let's try it. I'm going to open my Kali machine. And let's start from simple scan, simple enumeration. Let me say nmap. Then I'm going to provide IP address, port. For the sake of time, let me use port 22 immediately. All the rest, let me just keep it. But if I run it like that, it will fail. So let me try. You will see that it fails. No. So it says this host seems to be down, or they just block pinging. That's what they do. They block pinging, and nmap gives me even suggestion to add pn. Let's try. So let me add pn, and of course, yeah, port was opened, and message port is open. All right. So next step will be pretty straightforward. I'm going to let me show you the visual interface, and I'm going to brute force a bit with a very simple dictionary. Shouldn't take very long. Fingers crossed. Oh, wait a second. An administrator, my bad. Maybe it'll take a bit longer. All right, for the start to attack, and soon it should find, because my dictionary shouldn't be too large, and it should be able to find the right password. Now, after I found the right password, it's the same Hydra. What I'm going to do, oh, wait a second, it failed. And the reason why it failed is because my stability again. This time it should work. Oh, really? Are you sure? Maybe that's this pass in the dictionary. But yeah, this one should work anyway, because that's just a regular brute force. No valid password found. That's it. But anyway, let me try to connect, and let me just say root add and the IP address, provide a password that I should find. Oh, really? Permission denied. Are you sure? I think that was the password. Nope. Okay. Then you will not allow me to do it. Interesting. That was user root. Maybe machine has been compromised already by someone and they changed the password. But password used to be like that, and I did not change it. Of course, I have different machines that I do not expose that easily. So let's play with them. In that case, let's play with them. Then I'm going to connect a different machine if that machine doesn't allow me to connect. So this time password will be more complicated, so it shouldn't be compromised by anyone. Yeah. So let's work with this machine in this case. Now, those steps before that I showed before, they are pretty straightforward. So the same step we have on premises too. No big difference. But now let me show you one thing. In the cloud, when you have virtual machine, when customers have a virtual machine, quite often those virtual machines, they have applications installed, and those applications they may need to have access to other infrastructural pieces. And so quite often customers use special accounts for it. And those accounts in Azure they call managed identity, but the same accounts we have in GCP and AWS. So that's a special account that will be assigned to the virtual machine, and this account will have may have some privileges. Now, if we own the machine, even with the regular permissions, with the regular user rights, we can extract the token for this account, for this identity. How can we do it? So if I use command like this, so I'm looking to what is called IMDBS, and I'm trying to find a token for managed identity in this database. And this token will be valid to manage resources. Let me press that. And now I can see the JWT token. Let me quickly show you what this token can do. If I open JWTMS real quick, copy this token, place here. Now I can see that this token has audience, and this token assigned to specific virtual machine called Lin1. And I don't know about privileges currently, what this machine has, but maybe we can check. We can also check like expiration and other properties of the other properties. So now for the demo purposes, let me say that this token has privileges. Let me assign privileges to this. To be fair, those privileges already assigned for the different machine, but because I cannot log in this machine, probably has been compromised already by someone else, because I deployed it on purpose to compromise that for anyone. But I did not expect it will happen that quick. One moment, let me quickly assign privileges to this token. All right, so I did it. So now what I can do, I can try to reuse this token. And try to sign in. By the way, I have some extra information here that I don't need. Now, let me try to use this token. To sign in. I'm going to open this time Windows machine, not this one, different one, Windows machine. And let me just open PowerShell. Say connect AZ account and connect with access token. So not username, not password, but access token. So that will be the access token here. All right. And then what I need to do as well, I need to provide account ID. Account ID is nothing else than the name of virtual machine. You may say, hey, wait a second, how can you find this account ID? Quite easy. If you just go to if you look at the JWT token, you will be able to find that the name is revealed just in the token. So if I have a token, I can easily find the name. So it's not a problem at all. Let's check it again. Token. Here is the name, Lin1. Let me take this name and provide account ID as well. Yep. So now what I can do, I can play with with the permissions I have. Let's say get AZ VM, and let's see privileges. yeah, I have access to one virtual machine called SC Win1. Not bad, not bad. And so I don't know what kind of privileges, but you can see here now I have some access to Azure environment. So I'm really taking data about Azure. And what I did, I just compromised the machine like normally, like we do it on premises. But now there's some other Azure specific allows me to do something else. All right, that was compute. So you can see here many similarities at the same time, something new. Let's take a look at the next one, storage. Storage, it may be like a storage account in Azure or S3 bucket in AWS. So we can, there are two things we can do. First of all, we can use public resources to make a search. For instance, that quite well-known gray hat warfare, where you can just type a word. Let's say I would like to look for budget, and make a search. And look at that. So it shows me something that was found publicly across different clouds in AWS, in Azure Cloud, and so on. So that's something like, you probably heard about Google Foo, when you can just use search engine to find something interesting. So this or Shodan, that when you look for like IoT devices. So you may think about this like a similar, so like a search engine where you can look for some interesting data across those storage services. But at the same time, let's see what we can do about storage specifically. So what if I have a storage account? And this storage is like, I know the storage name, and I would like to test this specific storage. In this case, it may be very similar to our regular procedure with Deerbuster or GoBuster or whatever you like. So if I take a storage, so here I have a storage, and there's a public container. You cannot enumerate all of them like list of files, but if you know the name, you can try to find, you can try to brute force those names. And again, here we can do this. We can do the same. We can do the same. We can do the same. So let me try to get container properties, find that, and I'm gonna go back, open OWASP, Deerbuster, say go faster, and let me just allow brute force files without recursive. Extension will be CSV, and let me just add the some kind of dictionary. Word list. Let's start. And so sooner or later, it should be able to find. It should be able to find my secret. So storage. First of all, we can publicly we can find some public resources. At the same time, when we know the storage name, we can try to just try to brute force the files we have on it. Next one, databases. So databases, it's like a backend. And normally when we have that on premises, we need to compromise something else first. But in the cloud, we may have a chance that those databases are publicly accessible. It doesn't, there are no guarantees, but it might happen. So for example, let me just take you to database. Where's the SQL database? So for example, in Azure, we have firewall. We have firewall. And normally we may not allow, we need to explicitly open some port. At the same time, some customers check this box. And so that means, so from any IP address belongs to Azure, we can try to access this server. So let's try, if I copy that and open Nmap again. Open Nmap again. Let's say Nmap. And the port, let's say 1433, and look at this, so port is opened. Because my machine in Azure and because my backend in Azure, I did not open any ports specifically, but there's a settings that customers sometimes enable for their convenience to allow access from any Azure address, have access to the database. And so now we have access to the database. And of course, now we can just try to have access. Of course, we need to have credentials, so it's not just the beginning, but that's some kind of specific in the cloud. Like that's what I told you before. So we may have additional exposure, not typical for on-premises. So that's another benefit. So without being said, so let me just quickly talk about those services, because based on the time we have 18 minutes till the end of the session. We also have Q&A part. So if I show you all of those demos, that will take forever. I would say you might also find my session about containers. I just pre-record a session about containers at like 45 minutes. But in general, app services, that's like when we deploy application. And here we can really do the same like with web applications, SQL injections, upload shell, find out some flows in those applications. But we have very new service that we don't have on premises, which is called serverless. Here, customers only control the code. So there is no access to the infrastructure, but only execute the code. But if we can get access to the actual serverless, like Lambda function or Azure functions, and we can execute our own code, we can just rewrite the procedure and do something else, do something different. But usually on serverless, we need to already have some kind of access already. Containers, it depends. So we have container registry where containers are stored. We also have container like Kubernetes where containers are running, and depends on that, different ways to compromise. Please take a look, Pentest. Please take a look at just use search engine to find out how container, use my name, containers pentesting to find out the video. KMS, key management service. That's where company stores their encryption keys. And normally, to compromise that, we need some kind of access already, but application may have this access, because application need to have access to keys if like, for instance, or secrets, depends what not only keys here, but also secrets. So application may have access to those secrets. And so that by compromising application, we can have access to keys and secrets. And finally, identities. So like users and their identities. Here, different things, mostly social engineering. And maybe you remember what happened with Uber, because like phishing with credential harvesting, and then with social engineering, the attackers, they made to get access to identities. Do you have it in the scope in your pen test? It really depends. Before I move on to the Q&A section, I would like to share some of the resources where you may find a bunch of tools, because quite often when people hear about pen test, they expect to hear about tools. So let me show you a few quite nice services, like resources where you can find a bunch of tools. So first, let's start from AWS. Here, it's called My Arsenal of AWS Tools. I think that's one of the richest. Here you have not only offensive tool for pen test, you may find like for defenses, purple teaming, so number of different tools. So here is defensive and hardening. I scroll, scroll, and scroll. I must scroll, scroll, scroll. Then offensive, which is like to do pen test. And different frameworks. So for instance, AWS Pen Testing Toolkit, which is called PACU, then Credential Scanner, and many more. So different tools. So just take a look at them, take a look at this source because it has a lot. At the same time, we have similar for Azure. Let me quickly show you, and then I promise I will handle your questions. Awesome Azure pen testing, and here also number of tools for enumeration, lateral movement, exploitation, credential attack, and so on. Even articles, how to use them, and some articles with some techniques and methodologies. All right, so now we are moving to Q&A part, and yeah, let me just quickly tell you what we had before. So we discussed like some pen testing specific in the cloud and on premises. Yeah, I wish they have 1 more hour to show you all of those parts, like examples of demo, but it is what it is. So we discussed some of the specifics about pen test for on-premise and mostly for the cloud. Then we watched some demos and where we had this comparison between so this technique can be used in the cloud, but now we have new other techniques that are unique for the cloud. So I hope that was informative and give you some ideas what you may use in the cloud as well. What also, but the last, definitely the last one. So of course you need to find out some domains and company resource. I skip it because it's quite similar for all stages. But when you at least start to touch customer environment, there may be some differences. So please take a look at a list of tools and find out what may work for you. And some of those tools, they even can help you in the full kill chain lifecycle. All right, now your questions.
Thank you so much, Sergey. Actually, it was a very informative session, and our actually attendees shared the same sentiments because they have sent so many questions with the feedback also. So, uh, before we start the question, today's webinar is in sync with our newly launched certification, which is CPENT. It is EC Council Certified Penetration Testing Professional, is a specialization certification that teaches you to perform effective penetration tests in an enterprise network environment. With CPEN, you will cover advanced penetration testing tools, techniques, and methodologies with needed right now. Uh, it's 100% hands-on, challenge-based learning on live practice cyber range with multidisciplinary networks in real-world configurations. If you are an ethical hacker, penetration tester, forensics analyst, cyber threat analyst, network service administrator, red team engineer, SOC analyst, security administrator, this specialization program is designed to upskill you. CPEN program is designed with the latest multidisciplinary curriculum and practice on dynamic live cyber ranges to help you master your penetration testing skills. Evaluation is fully online, remotely proctored, performance based practice exam, award the industry recognized CPEN certification and the prestigious LPT master. If you are interested to know more about this program, kindly take part to the poll which is conducted right now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you. So, Sergey, shall we start the Q&A?
Go ahead.
So, our first question is, are cloud companies moving towards containerization platform in place of hypervisor?
That was the question?
Yes.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. Are cloud companies moving towards containerization platform?
Yeah. So I would say, so if you look at the many services that you work with, like PaaS services, they are based on containers. And let me give an example that I very quickly went through. So if we look at the like app service of Microsoft App Service, if you establish the shell, like upload the shell and just take a look at the operating system, you will find that that will be container. Yeah, so their services, they based on containers. Of course, you may deploy virtual machines, but when it comes to PaaS, yeah, they containerize it. And also, like if you're asking about yourself, like your customers, if you're asking about cloud providers, yes, they use containers, but we don't know everything that they have. So probably they have different configurations. But yeah, companies they're moving, they redesign their application to microservices, and container will be one of the important pieces of microservice infrastructure, microservice architecture.
Thank you, Sergey, for the answer. So our next question is, I need to know if the penetration tester should have knowledge in all cloud services to be able to make the penetration.
Good question. I would say it's hard to be an expert in all clouds, and we have big three clouds: AWS, Azure, and GCP. The problem is, yeah, of course, you may eventually learn all of them, but you cannot. Maybe you can, but it's hard. It's hard to stay up to date as well. So you don't have to. You should be aware of different cloud platforms, but to be an expert in all three major cloud platforms will be pretty complicated. The reason why is because cloud is not static. It's not something that like Windows 15 years ago, like you install Windows XP, or Windows 15 years ago, Windows XP, Windows Vista, and you have the same operating system for years. Like cloud changes over time, and if you try to become expert in all of those clouds, it will be pretty hard to keep up to date. So, but you should be familiar with all clouds, and you should know how the same operation can be performed in a different cloud.
Thank you, Sergey, for the answer. So our next question is, where can we view the pen test for each component of cloud done by you?
Where can you review pen test cloud components done by you? What it means? Can you say again? Where you can review pen test platform.
Yeah, so the question is from Mohammed Haris Zafir. He asked, where can we view the pen test for each component of cloud done by
Okay.
you? Done by you.
Okay. Where you can read about this, right? So I would say one of the best resource that where you can find about methodologies is payloads all the things. That's quite famous GitHub. Sometimes it's hard to find something there because it's so huge, and sometimes it really you just need to Google something separately, like payloads, all the things. Let's say Azure. It's something, so it's easy to find that using the search engine. So now we have a cloud Azure. So you may find here cloud methodology and resources. So cloud for AWS, cloud Azure pen test. So you may go through that, like AWS pen test, find out different known attacks for AWS. You may do the same for Azure, like enumerate valid emails, subdomains, and so on. So that may be a starting point where you can find a bunch of things, a bunch of tools, and bunch of ideas. What is vulnerable in Azure or AWS? If I understood the question correct, then that's the answer.
Thank you, Sergey. Our next question is, would cloud pen test typically be included in a external or web app pen test, or would be in dedicated cloud pen testing?
I would say both, because depends on your scope of engagement. Quite often, we have like a strategy called zero trust. Probably heard about zero trust. And one of the principles of zero trust is assume breach. Assume breach. So it means that sooner or later something can get compromised. So if we only pen test external and leave everything else, then it means if someone will be more successful in external pen test, they can get into, and all the rest wasn't tested. So we need to test everything, and external separately, and also run assessment for internal resources. Like, hey, give me an account, maybe with this with low privileges, and let me try to do it myself. So because one of the scenario may be compromised user, and so user with the lowest privileges, but with legit user account, will be able to enumerate directly from inside. So both.
Thank you, Sergey. So we will be taking our last question. That is, in penetration testing, apart from Python, what other programming you advise to study?
It depends. I would say Python, yes, number one, but many things for so if you are talking about like the cloud, modern, and so on, then Python will be one of your best friends. But quite often we still have Win32. Even if they have infrastructure in the cloud, you may find still Win32 applications, user desktops. So from that perspective, C#, C++, even one of the most famous tool, Mimikatz, written on C++. So those languages will be also useful. But yeah, that's for Win32 or Linux applications like C++. But yeah, Python is the most universal.
Thank you so much, Sergey, for this informative session and answering all those questions. Uh, it was a pleasure to have you with us, and we all are looking for more and more sessions with you. Before we conclude the webinar, Sergey, would you like to like give us a small message to our audience?
Small message. Not sure if I have any small messages for you, but let me try. So I would say that watch demos, even slides. It's quite informative, but the best you can do is to do it yourself. So if during the session you got some ideas that you can implement or resources you can try, do it. Because just by watching something, you may think, oh, I'm becoming smarter. But if you want to really have a skill, then you need to try it. So my recommendation is to do it yourself. Try it yourself. And of course, we also will remember that there's a code of conduct. Okay, do it legally.
Thank you so much, Sergey.